So throughout history, madness has really fascinated and frightened a lot of humanity. So really from like the divine mania of ancient Greece to modern diagnosis and clinical charts, and understanding of mental illness has really evolved alongside our understanding of really what it means to be human and how the brain processes in the world. So for the Greeks, madness wasn't really always a curse. It was viewed as divine inspiration and something that was looked up to. So a lot of their gods, like the god of ecstasy and chaos, could possess the ability to create poetry and art. And so mania was often viewed as a spiritual thing, and it was viewed as a gift that the gods had given them and not a disease that needed to be fixed. Continuing on, during the Christian Middle Ages, everything really changed and kind of flipped around. So madness became synonymous with possession or moral failing. So treatments often meant exorcism or confinement, which was really inhumane, and it was really brutal to today's standards. And so it was just something that was not really like productive when it came to treating mental illness. Continuing on, as Europe entered the modern era, madness moved from being like sacred and demonic and isolating to something that was medical and something that they could actually treat. So the Great Intermits, as people called it, was really how thousands of mentally ill were locked away in asylums to be treated. And again, it was still really inhumane of them. By the 19th century, psychiatry really emerged as something that was a medical discipline. So madness became mental illness how we know it today, and treatments shifted from spiritual to scientific. So it was actually something that could be done about it. There were many experimental and harsh treatments such as classical conditioning, insulin shock, electrotherapy, and many more. In the 20th century, psychiatry met psychology. So behavioral therapy really started to explore how patterns of behavior, so like reward and reinforcement, and how certain fears could really shape mental health and shape the brain. And so the focus was on changing like your habits and your environment and not just your mind. So it really helped kickstart mental health helping. Continuing on, the 1950s introduced the first antidepressants and antipsychotics, revolutionizing treatment. For the first time, chemical imbalances were finally seen as treatable, and so it finally helped change the shift of the mind. Yet a lot of the time, the medicine also raised a lot of ethical questions regarding it. In the 1960s, really a lot of questions started to be directed towards psychologists and psychiatrists. So a lot of the time, a lot of people were asking if they were just creating up disorders to medicate them to quote unquote help them. So in California, a lot of psychologists were accused of controlling their patients because of that. Continuing on, massive institutions were really closed down around the 70s and 80s because patients were moved to more general hospitals and were starting to be treated at home, which was way more humane. And this shift really reflected a belief that isolation caused as much damage as like the disease did already. So it really helped change the shift of mental health on patients. Psychiatrist Stuart Agres described how mental illnesses often exist like on a spectrum, and so like you never really know who might have one. So somebody on the road might have a fear of heights, and you might not have a fear of heights at all, but for them that fear of heights is really, really extreme. So it's a really big spectrum of what is quote unquote normal and what is quote unquote ill. As our cities really grow, a lot of stress and anxiety really build up over time, causing a lot of overstimulation and overcrowdation of environments that they drive us towards like our neurons. And it really just shows that civilization plays a really big part on how the mind works and how your environment plays a part in that. And then our capitalism and psychiatry sometimes really do intersect. So a lot of the time pharmaceutical companies have been accused of inventing new diseases or like overdiagnosing diseases such as ADHD, which is very common in children, and how they just like to like drug kids and like diagnose kids with that. And so it causes a lot of fear in the public. Continuing on, Agres believe that behavior changes the brain just as much as the brain changes behavior. So the brain, mind, and the world are all intertwined together. So in order to fully change the way that your brain works and the way that your mind works, you have to change your environment and change what it is that you're doing on a day-to-day. So changing your habits as well. And as the media continues to grow and as modern medicine continues to grow, they really start to influence each other. So eating disorders like anorexia, bulimia, and body dysmorphia really cultivate a certain culture, which has not helped with mental illness whatsoever, and it has actually made it a lot worse because they see things that they shouldn't. So as we stand today, psychiatry really continues to evolve from the beginning, from where ancient Greece was seen as something that was a gift. It has slowly become something that has been seen as an issue, but it's an issue that we can solve, and we can continue to help those who have it because there's a need for people to be helped. Thank you.